Hey gang, it is Wednesday. It is another episode of Humpday Happy Hour. It is the 159th episode. That's really hard to say. 159 weeks of bliss with you all. But anyways, we are honored to be here. Tonight, Jeff is doing his son thing with his parents. His mother had a little procedure today, so Jeff will not be joining us tonight. However, it is myself, my good friend, Dr. Jennifer Bell, and we have a great guest for you tonight as well. And we will be talking about that in a little bit. Anyhow, without further ado, here is Dr. Jennifer Bell with
Let's get to
the
it.
news.
The news. Okay, so I posted today, I saw on another platform this new regulation that's coming out. I was not familiar with it at all. Totally missed this one. There is a lot of regulation coming down around A2P texting. What does that mean? Association to people texting. So there's people to people texting, which is what most of us engage in on a daily basis to our friends and colleagues. But there's also marketing texting that is allowed or you sign up for or consent to that you get throughout the day. So they're trying to crack down on the amount of spam. And I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but I will say on the heels of this new legislation coming out or regulation, I have been bombarded over the last 2 weeks with spam texts and emails. And it's usually maybe I get one a month or, it's not a very frequent thing. I'm getting them daily now. Terrible ones like Harbor Freight and Verizon wants to have you click this link and blah, 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 all these things. So I'm thinking maybe it's because of this change in regulation and maybe it's created a bit of an uptick. But why is this important to you? Well, it's important to you as a consumer because you obviously need to be aware of this because I did see today in particular on Verizon's website, there may be charge differences if you're participating in association to people texting versus people to people texting. So you should be looking into that. But in addition, it is important for you as a dental practice owner or participant in a dental practice. So my office engages in association to people texting for confirmations. We also request reviews on Google and Facebook through texting messaging. And also our team communicates with our patients via texting as well. So if you're using a third-party system, in my practice, it's Weave and Yappy and Swell. If you're using any of those different platforms and utilizing the texting part of that, really important that you are making sure that your number and tax ID has been registered with the US government so that you will be allowed to continue with your A2P texting. We checked in with all of our vendors today and we're all good and compliant. It's a quick call or help session online to make sure that that company is ready to go. There are a few out there that do service the dental market that are working through some of the nuances and having to change some coding to get all of that compliant. So it is imperative that you reach out to your third-party vendors to make sure that you are registered and will have no issues with continuing with your confirmations, review requests, communications, etc., through texting. Otherwise, you not only may not be able to do that, but it may start to cost the patient to receive those particular types of messaging. So that's your PSA for today. Make sure you're working with your third-party groups and that you'll be compliant so there'll be no disruption in your business. As many of us are aware, there was a huge wildfire issue in Maui and affected a huge community out there. And a few folks have posted dental offices and colleagues that are without work. Their offices have been destroyed. There are a lot of displaced support staff members looking for secondary income while they wade through this particular natural disaster. And so the Hawaii Dental Association has set up a foundation. I encourage you to go to the ADA website or to the Hawaii Dental Association website directly to seek out information about the foundation. You can address checks specifically to the Disaster Relief Fund, which will go directly to those individuals who have been impacted by this tragedy and hopefully help them, carry through until they can sort of get back, hopefully, to life as normal. I don't know about you, but I've seen the pictures. It's almost hard to believe life as normal can come back from the devastation that they have experienced. But if you have a little extra change or feel inclined to help our fellow colleagues, that is one way that you can participate in the disaster relief efforts going on in Hawaii. Lastly, I bring up this story because of my dear friend, as I was introduced, Chad. As many of you may know, Chad is an avid golfer, an average avid golfer, but an avid golfer nonetheless. And I saw this story and I thought, could this happen to Chad? So there was a dentist who was playing golf at his local country club, and a gentleman and his wife were walking up the cart path. Now, I happen to live in a golf community, and I know what a sin that is. It keeps our next door and Facebook pages afire with people walking their dogs, riding their bikes, or going on a Sunday stroll on the golf cart paths. Well, this dentist in Florida had had enough, and he approached the individuals who were walking on the cart path, encouraged them to leave. A kerfluffle may have occurred, and maybe or maybe not, this Florida dentist hit the gentleman walking on the cart path with his golf club, and now is being charged with battery and assault. So this is another PSA, heads up for all our average avid golfers. Yes, Chad, that includes you at 9.3 handicap. We've got to find another outlet for our anger. Yes, they should not be walking on the cart path. I agree with you 100%. But we can't hit them with the golf clubs. We just can't. We can't do it. And with that, that's the news.
Great news. I love it. You gave me, I already sent my team an email. We're going to check with all the people that we send text out, text out on our behalf. Wonderful segment. Great job as always.
Just trying to keep everybody in compliance. A lot is going to be happening in the fall, so please stay tuned. We'll try to keep you up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring our guest on. Do you want to introduce our guest?
I would love to. So I was actually introduced to our guest this evening, Dr. Sara Kuckhoff, through another guest of ours, Darcy, who came on a few months ago through kind of different connections, mostly through Adamo, who, if we're all being honest, we've been trying to replace Chad for quite some time, but just hasn't quite worked out. But anyway, it's really neither here nor there. But Sarah's here to join us tonight. We want to talk to her a lot about the Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry and kind of her journey. And that one of the things that I learned about her and learned about the Academy as well is the residency program that they offer. And I don't think there's a lot of knowledge or kind of widespread understanding about that residency and what that might look like. She is currently working with one of our favorite guests, Adamo, who we love to have on the program as well. Before the show, she and Chad found a lot of kindred connection in their locations that they've lived all over the past, we'll just say years. For Chad, it's decades, but for Sarah, it's just years. And anyway, she also went to MUSC, which Jeff's not here, but that's his alma mater as well, where he got his dental degree. So a lot of connections here, a lot of excitement. I think we should just dive in. Sarah, thanks so much for being here.
Sarah, I'm going to call you Chili.
I mean, it works. It's an easy way to let people know how to pronounce my last name without like being weird about it. I'm not going to be like the H is silent. You know, it's like a chili cook-off. It's easy.
Or since you're from Louisiana, let's call it gumbo. Do they have gumbo cook-offs?
Is that a thing?
It's like, that'd be pretty badass.
That would be pretty great. Well,
I
I mean,
think
I
that's
feel
a
like
smart one.
jambalaya would be like, people would do a jambalaya
Oh
cook-off.
yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
you could get a lot more creative with the jambalaya than you can a gumbo. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe
People
I'm
are
a
pretty like
Man, there's
firm.
traditionalist when it
gumbos
comes
that
to
I won't even
gumbo.
stick a spoon in. That's so nasty.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
No.
There's gumbos out there that I won't even touch. It's got to have a dark roof for me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's got to be dark, and it's
Yeah,
got
it's
to
got to
have
be
some bay
dark.
leaves in it. And
Yeah, and if it's too light and has a lot of okra in it, it becomes stringy. It's just like, no, I'm not touching that shit.
I can't do the stringy okra. I can do
Yeah.
fried okra. I can do
Yeah.
okra a
Yeah.
lot of ways, but the slimy.
We actually
I'm
had
out.
okra for dinner tonight. How you like that?
I love
Really?
okra.
That's some southern stuff right there.
Look at you
So
guys.
anyhow, we didn't come to talk about okra.
That's
I mean,
our that
we
concludes
could.
the cooking purport. The cooking portion
Yeah.
of our
Yeah.
Here's
show.
our cooking show.
Please
Yeah.
submit your favorite recipes on okra, and we'll publish that for the next
Yeah.
episode.
So I'm going to start off because I really knew nothing about Sarah tonight, except I found out that she works for a real dipshit in Long Island. I'm teasing. You work for probably the most amazing dentist that I know, and just a solid gentleman, as we would say in the South. Let me ask you this: when did you graduate from dental school?
So I graduated in 2019 from MUSC, and then I went straight into private practice. So I worked in a little town outside of Greenville, South Carolina. I worked in a great office as an associate. I got to say, like, a lot of people have horror stories about their first position, and I don't have that experience. I had a great first job. My boss was like a mid-sized group practice. They've grown a lot since then. Family Dental Health. Jen, they've expanded, I think, into North Carolina too. So, but at the time, one of the two owners, he was from Easley and had worked in the practice and helped build it up. And so he spent a lot of time with me, and he really just encouraged me to kind of figure out what I enjoyed, help point me in the right direction of a few mentors within our group. And that kind of led me to where I ended up being with Adamo today. So that was kind of the middle stretch between, graduating and then finding a residency after practicing for a little while.
I would say, do you know how lucky you are? But I think I'd say, do you know how blessed you are to be with Adamo? I mean, really, truly,
sure.
what a great opportunity. When did your interest peak in the Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry?
So, 2019 was a great time to graduate, but also a little bit of a challenge because right when I felt like I was hitting my stride, COVID came. But like you said, kind of blessing in disguise, I had a lot more time to start to think about what I really enjoyed about what I was doing. And, now that I couldn't do what I was doing because something was preventing me from that, maybe what did I want to do more of if I got the chance to go back to the office again? And so that's when I started to kind of take a deep dive, and I noticed people doing the kind of dentistry I wanted to do. And so I saw people like Amanda C., who had lectured to me one time at MUSC, and I'd watched a lot of her like free DC clinical webinars. I went back into the archives and would rewatch old webinars she did. And so I saw that kind of work being done, and I thought, well, I'm not doing that right now, but how do I bridge that gap for myself? And so that led me to the AACD, and they have a great CE Central online learning platform. And so I started watching. I had a lot of free time in COVID. So I kind of dove deep there. And then I started to save up for some continuing education that were, larger chunks of money. So I looked to see what those people who were doing the kind of dentistry I wanted to do were doing. And they were taking courses like the COIS courses. And so I weighed out COIS versus Pankey versus Spear, and I ended up choosing COIS. And so I saved up for that. And then I also saved up for the Impress course that Amanda and Adamo teach together. So that's kind of how I got to where I ended up.
That's awesome.
How did you? So I don't think number one, I don't think a lot of people know about the residency program. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. And two, it's interesting that you were in practice first before you pursued the residency, which, most of us ignorant individuals think, oh, residency follows your pre-doctoral education. You would just go from basic pre-doc to then you move on to a residency. And for you, if you had pursued cosmetic, you would just move into that. So talk about that journey, talk about the requirements. What does it look like for someone to want to pursue that type of residency?
So the residency is pretty unique. It's not a traditional residency. It's not based out of a university or hospital system. So It's also been around for a shorter period of time. So I think there have been maybe 4 classes that I've gone through. I actually knew Amanda and Adamo's last 2 residents. So when I was looking for then my next learning opportunity, I reached out to both of them, and Julie Driscoll and Devin McClintock were great resources for me. Really good people, and they spoke highly of their mentors and told me about how much hands-on I was going to get and how I was going to essentially sit next to an expert, and kind of like a journeyman with an electrician, where you really follow somebody around. I really got a chance to be, like Adamo's shadow almost, and go where he went. And so that opportunity really drew me to it. Not that I don't like a traditional school-based opportunity, but I wasn't going to be a traditional applicant. I was going to be coming from the workforce and bringing that knowledge to a residency program. So I thought it kind of fit. And then after meeting Amanda and Adamo, I thought, all right, if one of the 2 of them would be willing to take somebody, and I really got along well with Dr. Adamo. I liked his personality. I liked his background. I liked the way he treated his participants in class. And like from the first moment, I mean, you met Adamo.
Yeah.
When you meet him, you feel like family.
Mhm.
And I mean, truly, from the time that I met him in Charleston to this moment now, he's always made me feel welcomed and, appreciated. And he's always given me opportunities to do different kinds of work. And so that was a big draw. But as far as the AACD residency, what does it look like from an applicant perspective? There's a formal application process. Your requirements, they kind of want somebody who's been working for 3 to 5 years or has done a residency of some other kind. You're going to spend a lot of time with your mentor. So there's an interview process. And, like I worked the last day with Adamo. He worked from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We worked 12 hours. We spent the whole time sitting side by side. And just like you sit with your dental assistant, I mean, if you don't jihad with your dental assistant, it's a long day, right? And so the same goes for a resident, especially when that person comes back and sits in your office and then says, okay, so I saw us, we did this, why did we do that? And he really opened himself up to have those conversations with me during the day, even when there's a frustrating moment or when something's not set up right. I mean, we've all walked into an operatory and every mirror you pick up is scratched or every pair of scissors is dull. And you're like, I would love one good,
Mhm.
So, but to circle back to the residency program, there is that interview process, if you are fortunate enough to make it that far. And then from there, it's a 2-year commitment. And you are placed in that person's office, and then you're going to have an experience that has some requirements as to what I have to complete to submit to the AACD. But it's really mentor crafted and then also mentee shaped. Like it's what I make of it. So if I want to spend the extra time, I can.
I apologize. I know you said this earlier, but how long is the program?
2 years.
Okay, and you just started?
I started last year in June. So
Okay,
I've got
so you
1
have
year left.
1 year left, and then you're on your own.
Yep.
And you decide kind of what you want to do.
Yep.
And how many days a week are you with Adamo?
So Adamo, as you guys are lecturers yourselves, your week can kind of be a bridge. So he works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sometimes we see patients on Thursdays, sometimes on Sundays, depending on where his travel schedule is. But I'm here for it. I just told him,
Really?
I'm like, I've got a good support system here that has allowed me to be in Huntington, New York. And so whatever this 2 years entails, I just told him, like, if you need me, I'm here. So like this particular week is a shorter week. I worked in the office on Monday, and then he was back from traveling today and yesterday. And then he's flying out to Seattle to work at the Koi Center. So I'm going to stay and see patients. And he's got a partner in his practice, Dr. Larissa Figueri. She's also a Koi's mentor. Dr. Larissa is awesome. I actually stayed a little later today and watched one of her cases. So I get the benefit of having these 2 great Kois trained doctors. They also have an associate who's going through Kois with me, or we are both going through Kois. So there's a lot of people there and who are around.
I tell you what, growing up in Louisiana, I know you probably knew all the patron saints, but you have to throw out there right now. Let's give your husband a little credit because he's
For
obviously
sure.
pretty much a saint too. I mean,
Yeah.
what you were telling me before that he's just kind of letting you do what you do, and I think that's just awesome. That's teamwork right there. So kudos to
For
both of
sure.
you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I always I tell anybody who asks, I'm like, he's given me so many opportunities. He's always seen that potential in me, and I like to think I see the potential that he's got in himself. And so, when we can ebb and flow, we do. Like when I graduated dental school, he was like, I'm interested in pursuing an MBA, and so I was like, all right, like you do it, you go get your MBA. And so we lived in Greenville, South Carolina, where he could walk to get his MBA at the Clemson building downtown. So we've kind of, taken our turns doing different things to help grow ourselves. And we always joke, we're like, we've made our biggest investment in ourselves. And, I think it'll pay off in the long run.
So you also said earlier, and by the way, that's really cool. I loved a lot of the things you said before the show, but you said earlier that when you started off for college, I believe that you did not dentistry wasn't your vision.
No, no.
So tell us how that came about, and I know you said you went to college elsewhere out of Louisiana, but where did you go to college?
I went to Emory University in Atlanta.
Okay, you did say that. I'm sorry. Okay,
No,
so
you're fine.
Emory, and what was your initial vision, and what made you choose dentistry?
So I went to Emory. I started off interested in healthcare as a whole. I
Mhm.
always knew that I was drawn to, helping others, giving back, working with my hands. I hadn't had a lot of exposure to healthcare in general, and so I started to shadow different providers. And one of the first people I shadowed um, was my pediatric dentist back home. And so Dr. Hunt was awesome. She kind of nudged me at my yearly cleaning. She was like, "Hey, if you haven't decided what you want yet, you might want to check out dentistry." And I had considered it, but I hadn't made the leap, hadn't taken the chance. I loved what she did. Looking back, it kind of makes me chuckle because after going through dental school and doing peds rotation, I realized I'm not gifted with working with kids, but she certainly was. And I liked the educational aspect to her practice, and I liked how she managed her office and the flow. But she really got me started. And then I shadowed an oral surgeon at Emory, and I worked at a volunteer clinic. And so those kind of got my feet wet. And um, then I didn't get into dental school on my first shot. So I actually took a post-bac year, and was like, okay, if this is what I want, I'm gonna have to really work a little bit harder at it. And so I started shadowing a local dentist in the Charleston area while I did my post-bac program at MUSC. And that's where I kind of got to see what general dentistry really is about. He was an Air Force doc, so he did a lot of IV sedations in his office, extractions, restorative care. So that's really what got me into dentistry, was the combination of the science, but working with your hands. But it's funny, the type of dentistry that I saw before dental school and the type of dentistry that I saw while in dental school is not what I most enjoy about dentistry now. So it's been nice to have that evolution of interest. It's kept me excited about what I do.
I love it. That's great.
That's what I think is so great about our profession, and the just the variety. We, unlike medicine, we don't have to choose early where we want to pigeonhole ourselves. And
Yeah.
as a GP, we can have quite the opportunity in our own practices to even diversify once we choose to be a general practitioner. And unlike really medicine, where once you choose to be, an internal medicine person or cardiovascular, like there really is no ebb and flow beyond that. You're sort of, you're in that for the foreseeable future of your career. One of the things that really sticks with me listening to your journey and really knowing my own journey, and really knowing Chad's journey as well, is how impactful mentors are in our profession. And
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to speak on that for a bit, because in an age where I think a lot of practicing doctors are feeling a lot of burnout, a little bit exhausted with the profession, not the dentistry itself, but all the peripheral things that come along with the job. The value of being a mentor and having a mentee or being a mentee. And I think we all would, recap on moments where mentors were very invaluable to our journey, but also where are our opportunities as practicing doctors now to be mentors for somebody else. And what does that story look like? What impact do we have on the future of our profession? And you've sort of played in both roles now. You've had the mentors who sort of encouraged you in your journey, and you're a very engaged current mentee in a very real world environment. Do you have any observations, feedback, like, here's what I know, appreciate, understand about these different roles, and really maybe even putting yourself in Adamo's shoes for a moment and speak on his behalf because he's not here, to say, what does it mean for him as a practitioner? Because I'm sure he's expressed that to you as well. I mean, he doesn't have to do this. I'm sure it doesn't pay him a massive amount of money, and like, he's doing it for a particular reason.
I think I can speak a little bit for him. He cares about raising the standard of dentistry, period, full stop. So he does a lot through the AACD with mentoring accreditation candidates. So every day he'll be like, all right, I've got these 11 to 12 emails, sometimes more, people that are asking him for advice on cases. And, so he does a lot of that because I think he really believes in improving our profession as a whole. And so because he feels so strongly about that, I believe that's why he's chosen to do the residency program, not once, but twice. And I don't know if there's been, I think he's one of one in that. And so the things that he's given to Devin and I mean, he brings me to all the Impress courses. I mean, I've gotten to attend every single one of them. And, I sit in the back and he comes by and checks on me and asks, like, what'd you learn? Did you pick this up? You see how we're doing that right there? He takes that time. And so, like you said, he doesn't have to do that. But I think he feels that if he does it for me, that hopefully I'll give back in that same way. He really feels that really strongly about giving back. And, he's got his own mentors that have helped him along the way. And he always credits, those guys and gals. But he's also got a good group of colleagues, and they all riff off of each other and help and give feedback. And so he encourages me to find those people and, my peer group, the Devons out there, to kind of reach out to and find those commonalities, the Darcys, those guys, people who are really interested in dentistry as a whole. But, finding a good mentor has been huge. And if I hadn't gone, to continuing education courses, I don't think I would have had that opportunity to meet those people who are interested, because I just didn't know where to look. As a private practitioner in Greenville, South Carolina, I felt very narrow until I had some time to start to look outside of that. And social media gets, ragged on a lot, but there's a lot of good educators putting out content on social media. And, you can find the bad out there, but if you start to really look and see, and then, you find the article that they cite that they wrote, and you find that journal, and that leads you to somebody else. And it starts to snowball. You start to meet a lot of good people, and it improves and increases. And, Adamo introduced me to Paul Vrenon out in Las Vegas, and Paul's been a huge mentor. And I was fortunate enough at MUSC to have Tony Menito as one of my professors. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Those guys are educating and pushing new content and really trying to raise the bar across the board. So it's been really fun to start to meet new people and get introduced along the way.
So I have a question for both of you all. This is something that I was thinking of while we were talking about. Do you all feel, I don't even know how to appropriately verbalize this, but I was lecturing last night, and I was bringing up some of the people that have had a profound influence on my career. Do you feel that it's okay to call somebody a mentor that you've maybe met in person, but you've just really they've influenced the way that you practice dentistry through their virtual lecturing, through their they're writing through what they do. I mean, I was saying, I was lecturing. I was like, I had, a couple images of the people that have had an impact on the way that I practice dentistry. And I don't even think they know they have had an impact. Is that still a mentor?
Yes.
Or is it just a two-way street? Or does it have to be, or you know what I'm saying? Does it have to be a two-way street?
I think it could be a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think you have to have those people who influence you, but I think it could be a bit of both.
Okay, because you're saving me. I didn't know if I just had a man crush on him. Okay, I mean, because I'm talking about the Frank Spears of the world, the John Boyces of the world, the Greg Kinzers, and Marcus Blatz is such a wealth of information, and these people all were part of my lecture the other night, and I'm like, crap, I only really know two of them, but the others have had a big influence on the way I practice dentistry. So
but you can emulate. I mean, you can look at those individuals and say, I want to emulate the types of things that they do. And if I'm lucky enough, one day I'll share a drink with them at a bar. But at the very minimum, I mean, that's how I feel about Kois. I've gotten to know John over the years, but I would not call him my best friend. I would not feel comfortable picking up the phone and saying, hey, John, I'm stuck in this case. Could you help bail me out? Like, we're not at that level, but I adore him. I do. And I want to emulate his dentistry on a daily basis. And for me, he's a mentor, whether he wanted to accept that position or not,
I think we're all of a personality and we're all of a background that I think we'd be glad to mentor anybody, in certain ways, and I think it's a real honor to be called a mentor. And I know that, the people that we've all mentioned are just probably mentors to many, but Sara, I see you being a mentor to many down the road as well. And I think you're just on a fantastic track. And I wish that I would have started at as young of an age as you did. So kudos to you for that. That's my mission in dentistry right now is, of course, it's patient care, but my mission in dentistry is to stress the importance of continuing education to the younger generation, because, so many get out and they want a Maserati or they want a Porsche. And I think that some of us are in it for the wrong reason or don't understand the reason that we're really into it until we're into it for 10 years. And that's where I come from. I didn't necessarily want all the fancy things. I just didn't realize until 10 or 15 years into it that, like, holy crap, I'm missing the boat on a lot. So, I think you're going to be driving the boat. That's awesome.
Well, it's, for me, I really enjoyed learning about how to treat more than just one tooth. I found that in Easley, where I was practicing, I was seeing a lot of patients that had needs that were greater than maybe they couldn't do an ideal treatment. They had needs that they could only afford to talk about one thing at a time. And so that was really dissatisfying for me, because I felt like I wasn't really helping them. I felt like I was patching tires. And I was like, I can't do this forever. I can't patch tires. Maybe there's somebody out there who is okay with that, but that's not for me. I wanted to be able to take that person and figure out the why. And so that really drove me towards CE, because I couldn't answer it on my own. I'm one of those people who I'm like, okay, if I can find the answer and, I'll look for it. But so that really pushed me to CE, and a lot of good people I see as doing good dentistry told me, the monetary part will follow. But if you don't know and understand what you're doing, and you can't really support that patient as a whole, you might get the money, but it's hollow. It's a hollow victory, And so that's really helped push me towards the delayed gratification, because it's not easy going from getting a doctor paycheck to getting a resident paycheck. But it's totally worth it, I think, because what I learned in the first, week with Adamo, I felt like, oh my God, I didn't learn any of this in dental school. And that was kind of scary,
Yep.
Yeah. And I think the hardest part for a lot of people to realize is that if you really want it, you can make it work. I mean, it's just a matter of sacrificing. If you come right out of school, sacrificing for a little bit longer. If you're out 3 to 5 years, it's maybe saving up for that opportunity. And I certainly didn't realize that. So I'm not knocking anybody for not realizing it, you know. I mean, crap, I was so happy to get out of school and start paying on my loans and actually earning a paycheck. I mean, in my residency, I made $21,000, of which 13 of it went back to the school to pay my tuition. So, you know,
Yeah.
$8,000. Wow. But yeah, I get it. So I think it's awesome that you're making that investment in your future. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Making it rain.
Yeah. Counting all the dollars.
All the dollar bills.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
well, okay. So in this process of residency, do you start building your portfolio? Are you working towards accreditation? Is that a part of the program? Are you required to do that? And how's that all work?
That is an excellent question, because that was one of my questions coming in. I was interested in going through the accreditation process, but I wasn't sure if that was running in tandem with the residency. And, you know, after talking to Adamo, I came to the decision that I wasn't going to start that process while I was still a resident. The requirements line up very much in line with what the AACD accreditation requirements are. Those case types are built in there. But my goal in the 2 years was to learn a lot and to not focus on perfection before mastering the skill set. And so he was like, you know, if you want to take a case and have it be an accreditation case, you know, that's great, but you just got to let me know, because those cases, I'll be very hands off. And I didn't want any overlap. I wanted to earn this on my own. And so I just said, you know, I'm gonna, you know, push pause on that, do the residency, really learn as much as I can from it. And then once I step out of that, that's my go time. That's when I've got the skill sets. I know the photography. You know, I've had the opportunity to learn a lot of composite skills from Adamo and Amanda. You know, I've learned a lot about prosthetics, you know, and how pros and occlusion and treatment planning all functionally play a role together. So once I'm out of the residency, I'll run with that, because I really think that's I don't think you have to be accredited, but I want to be accredited, because I think I'll learn a lot from that process. You know, those case types that aren't hard or aren't easy. They are really challenging. But I think you learn from the critique.
For sure.
very cool. Very cool.
So what's life after residency? What does it look
That's
like?
what I was just going to ask. Well,
That is a great question. That is a great question. I think, you know, the next year will tell me a lot about what that looks like. It definitely looks like private practice. I am interested in, I enjoy the clinical part of dentistry. It certainly looks like, you know, increasing the hands-on time I have with patients, and finding the right practice for me. But certainly looking to join an office that's not that different from what Adamo has, you know. And there are a lot of great offices out there, but, you know, trying to find that good fit for me, and also making sure I'm a good partner and find a good space to where Thomas can thrive too. Cause, you know, that's kind of the deal, the partnership. But yeah, looking to find some place to grow.
So if I'm going to throw this out there, I've got a personal friend who is in residency and really struggling. He's in an AEGD, and his residency, he's really struggling. And what he's struggling is that the residency director that interviewed him is no longer there. There's a periodontist in charge of the AEGD. And he's finding out that he's not gaining the experience that he really wanted to through the AEGD. He has a vision of where he wants to be in 5 to 10 years, and he doesn't feel that this is going to help him along the way. So I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'm going to follow it up with a second question. But the first question is that, would you recommend that this person stay in the residency for the entire year, or would you recommend that they leave? And I'm just curious as to where you're at, what your recommendation would be. This is a fantastic dentist, wonderful for the future of our profession, but now he's questioning if he even wants to be a dentist anymore.
Well, one, I hate that for him. That's an awful
I do
spot
too.
to be in. I think it must feel like a no-win situation, right? The
Mhm.
thought of leaving makes you feel like you lack the commitment, to future employers. They see that as maybe
Hmm.
a lack of commitment, but time is our most valuable resource. And with that being at mind, we don't know how long we have, and making sure we make the most of our time, especially because time and money tend to go hand in hand. You know, trying to find maybe other opportunities within that system that he already lives and works in. If it's an AAGD, if that direct program is not good for him, maybe looking for a possible GPR connection within the same system, or trying to find some way to make the most of that time if he wants to stay. you know but if you're not getting what you need, maybe reaching out to other programs that are like programs, and saying if maybe you could do a transition versus a complete stop, because it's hard to explain away those things. Everybody's had that moment where you have to say why you withdrew from a class, or why you didn't finish something. People always look for those discrepancies in transcripts. And so, you know, for your friend, I think trying to find a way to make that a segue and not a hard stop.
Mhm.
But if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. And those are things you got to consider as on an individual basis.
Yeah, I think I'm the only person that has told this person to leave. Like,
Yeah.
I just said, if you're questioning dentistry, your mental health is more important
Mhm.
than what's going on right now. The last thing you want to do is come out and decide you're going to go to freaking law school or med school or whatever,
Yeah.
and just be like, if you went into dentistry loving dentistry and now you're questioning it, I think that you're, for your mental health, that you need to leave. Um, so that was my suggestion. But I get everything that you're saying, because there was a question: am I going to specialize after this? Am I going to stay? And if I'm going to stay in general dentistry, I'm going into private practice. Then go,
Yeah. I mean,
go
if you
and
got somebody you can go to a good office, go.
yeah, take the reverse of it, to where as a resident you're not making that much money. Take the reverse of it, go make a good living, and set aside some for education, and learn from Coyce or from Spear, or
Yeah, build your own residency.
yeah,
Yeah.
go do your own thing and figure out what makes you tick in dentistry. um, and maybe you just answered this too, but my next question would be, for a student that's a rising third or fourth year, knowing what you went through and what you've done, and where you are. Obviously you're very happy, but what would your piece of advice be to a rising third or fourth year at this point in time, as to, if they want to be the best general dentist that they could be? What would your advice to them be?
Well, a couple of things, because I look back on my choices a lot. I like to think through different, threads in life, the whole sliding doors idea. But um, I would say find a few shadow in a bunch of different offices. Like, see if somebody's open on a Saturday. The more providers that you touch base with, the more chances you have of seeing what you want to be and who you want to be like. Find people you want to emulate, because those are people who maybe can help you on your journey. And consider a residency. I really feel strongly that a residency program, 4 years may not be enough. You get out, you learn how to cut in a straight line, you learn how not to hurt people. But it just may not be enough to get that big picture. And so, seeing a lot of providers and shadowing, and then considering a residency program, and try and figure out what that residency program is going to look like for you. And maybe there's a private practice that, like you said, you build your own residency, and maybe there's a good fit for that. And certainly, I felt like I got a great first year out of dental school, but the formalized training and the certifications that you can get underneath the umbrella of a residency program that's like a formal one, come out with IV sedation, come out with implants, come out more proficient in endo, because certainly I didn't get a lot of endo training as a pre-doc. Our endo program had a hard enough time at MUSC getting patients to the
Mhm.
residents, let alone to the pre-doc. So, trying to gain that proficiency with some oversight. It's not hand holding. It's making sure you're treating patients the way they deserve to be treated. And sometimes that means having a provider in the room with you to say, yep, you're doing it right, keep going. Or, hey, let's redirect in a small way, But for those 3rd and 4th year students, those are great, things to do. Also start looking at those beyond residency, those CE programs. I mean, I didn't even know COIS existed until after I left dental school. I'd heard of Panky because we had a great AGD pre-doc program, but I hadn't heard much about any of the others. So
I think you have stressed tonight the value of mentorship, the value of community, because a lot of where all of us are today is because of being in community with other people and fellowship, I wouldn't be doing this podcast today with Chad or with you for that matter, if it hadn't been for the people we meet along the way and being with one another, and then investing in yourself and investing in your education so that, yes, time is your best or the equalizer, I think, but you can never lose when you're investing in yourself, because those who invest in themselves are always going to work their ever living hiney off to make that investment work. So I think that, to me, those are takeaways for tonight, and hopefully for our audience as well, especially for anyone who is struggling, like what Chad mentioned, with what their future in dentistry looks like, or whether or not this profession will provide emotional and mental satisfaction for them going forward. Staying connected, being with one another, mentoring each other, or being menteed by somebody are going to be, I think, the keys to keeping this profession really healthy. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thank you
well,
so
thanks
much.
for having me.
What an awesome time.
What's that?
I said, what an awesome time.
No, I thought, I didn't hear you. Sorry. You said
also,
it.
that fig leaf behind you looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. She's a beauty.
I'm working on mine to get a second branch. Otherwise, it's going to be wickedly weird and tall. So maybe next time we get together, I can show off my fig leaf too.
Yeah. You gotta have one of them. We have a plant segment.
You have.
Oh, no.
What? Yours died?
Yeah, we have a fake one. It looks just as good though.
Okay, Chad, you can't be on the plant segment then.
Oh no, I could be, but Ellen can't.
Well,
shots fired.
Ellen, I think you're a wonderful human being, and I'm sorry for the bus. It just rolled over your back.
I'm saying that she'd agree.
Nature.
She'd agree. Yeah.
We all have our shortcomings, Chad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So
and our seasons.
Well, we have come to the end of another wonderful wonderful show.
I think speech might be your shortcoming.
Yeah. I think sometimes it is. Sometimes it is, Jennifer. It's whatever was in this damn glass. I don't know. Yeah.
You don't know, huh?
But Sarah, thank you so much. I tried to razz Adamo, but he must be busy tonight because he's non-responsive. But thank you so much for being on. You were just
thanks for having me.
The breath of fresh air. Such a great guest. You would be a great mentee to any, and I know that you've certainly found some great mentors. So you're welcome back anytime. Please keep us posted in your journey. And I would like us to go ahead and set June of 2025. Let's do a check-in with Sarah and see where she's at. Or no, 2024.
2024.
Yeah, so let's give it a few months to rest. So let's say maybe October of 2024. Let's see where you're at.
Yeah, you come at me in June, and it'll be all up in the air. We'll be moving their big boxes, the fiddle,
crying, the whole, it'll be all the things.
You might have that jambalaya cook-off rocking and rolling up in Manhattan or something. I don't know. So anyhow, thank you so much for being on, and thank everybody for listening. And if you're listening at a later date, make sure that you have checked in with where your text messages are being sent from, that they're compliant, and all of the other stuff that Jennifer talked about. So thanks everybody for being here, and good night.
And that wraps up another podcast for Dentists in the Know. On behalf of Dr. Jennifer Bell, Dr. Chad Duplantis, and myself, remember that we've got a great profession, so let's make it a great day, Dinks.